Over these last couple of days, just by way of summation of that inquiry that was being made as to what was the difference between a charm, an amulet, and a talisman, it was proposed that a talisman is like an icon, like the Christian cross, or the sign of the Om, or a relic of the Buddha, or a picture of our chosen ideal that we wear as a representative of and connection to that which is permanent and deep within ourselves. And the question's been asked, what is that? What is that power? What is that permanency? And to answer that question, we have to dive a little deeper. So there are 3 very short stories, anecdotes. And the first is about a great Sufi master who was sitting in his house, around him a number of his followers, when suddenly there was a knock on the door, and immediately the Sufi master got up from his position and went over and shouted through the closed door, "Go away! Do not enter here! Do not cross this threshold!" Outside the door was a young man, a seeker, who had gone through great hardships, traveling a vast distance, having many spiritual adventures along the way, to come to this great Sufi sheikh. But on those words from the master, he fell on his knees outside the door with tears rolling down his face before he turned and walked back down the path. All of the followers that were around the Sufi sheikh inquired of their master, "Why did you do that?" And the master said, "If this young man, who has already arrived, had crossed this threshold and seen my face, he would have fallen in love with me, fallen in love with his own image in the mirror that I represent." And a second story, in much the same vein, again of a great master seated with his followers around him. When there arrived a young being who again had traversed great distances and undergone many hardships to arrive at this place. And when he entered, the master shouted at him, "Get out of here! I do not want to see your face, and don't ever darken my doorstep again." Again the young man was shattered and staggered out of the doorway down the path. The followers of the master were aghast. "Why did you do that, master?" Just then, a bird flew in the window and began to bounce off the walls in great alarm, trying to find freedom. And just as it came close to the open window, the master got up and went over to it and shouted and clapped his hands, so that the bird flew out of the window to freedom. And the master said to his followers, "This young man is like that bird. Had he entered here and stayed, having already arrived at his destination, he would have hurt himself, damaged himself against the walls of this place. Could it be that my shout and my clap has allowed him to fly out to freedom?" The third story is a story about the great Sufi saint Bayazid. Now, before Bayazid became a saint, he too was a seeker, a sheikh, a dervish, but he was called to make the great journey to Mecca, and sewing a quantity of silver in his cloak to finance his journey, he set out. But being the seeker that he was, at every place that he stopped, he sought out the greatest spiritual master who was resident in that place. And because of his advanced state of awareness, he was immediately drawn to that person, and he met many along the way. But when he was advanced on his journey, getting near to his destination, he came to a village, a poor village, in which place lived the great Sufi Abu Said. Now, Bayazid was immediately drawn to the place where Abu Said lived, and he found him living in somewhat what we would call squalor. There was a scraggy goat tied up on a post. There were ragged children with runny noses running around, climbing all over him, playing in the dust. Abu Said himself was a blind man, dressed in rags, sitting on a sagging cot. But when Bayazid stood in front of this great, great Sufi, he recognized with his inner eyes the beauty, the radiance, the purity of Abu Said, and he fell down on his knees, abjectly humbled by the greatness of this being. Abu Said asked Bayazid, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I am going to Mecca." And Abu Said said, "What for?" And Bayazid said, "I will circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times, and then I will kiss this stone, knowing that it is that place that will bring me to enlightenment, oneness with God." Abu Said said to Bayazid, "You have no need to visit this stone, for what you seek is right here in me." circumnavigate me 7 times. Kiss me. Give me that which you were to give, and you will have fulfilled your task. Immediately, doubts entered in to Bayazid. How could it be that this wretched man, with eyes that have rolled up into his head and are blind to the world, even though they are all seeing, could be this that he speaks of? And suddenly Bayazid looked into the unseeing eyes of the great Abu Sa'id and was immediately transported into a state of ecstasy such as he'd never experienced nor known. Immediately, a great well opened up within him, and without a further thought, he circumnavigated Abu Sa'id's body 7 times, kissed him, taking the silver out from the lining of his cloak. He laid it before Abu Sa'id and departed. We all know that saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. What do these stories imply for you? What is that which connects them? Or what is their difference? What's your experience? A talisman.
Anything that we would use the crutch was going to hold us back. We were looking outside ourselves.
Yes.
We probably should kill you then, shouldn't we?
Yes. And yet, when we dive deeper, as we have need to do, we can recognize what it means and the relationship with this saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Because that third story illustrates the fact that the human body is not the essence of the being, and so you need to separate the human Buddha, the person, from whatever he represents.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to kill it.
Yeah, that's the idea of the Buddha, that has to be killed.
Yes.
not the Buddha.
Yes. Right.
And that's the idea of realization of this or that, or enlightenment.
Right, right.
That is stopping someone to realize.
Absolutely. Shattering the mirror, in other words, that this represents for us, isn't it? Because if you meet the Buddha on the road, you wouldn't be able to recognize the Buddha if you were not yourself the Buddha. So there we have the answer to it, isn't it? To recognize a Jesus Christ or a Buddha, we have to be the Buddha ourselves. Not possible. Thank you.